Our campus community is blessed with so many amazing people who embody BYU-Idaho's mission to develop disciples of Jesus Christ, who are leaders in their homes, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and in their communities. We want to introduce you to some of them and let you hear their stories. This is the BYU-Idaho Disciple Journeys podcast. I'm Isabella Salazar. My interview today is with Vanessa Perez-Perez, and this is Vanessa's journey. I'm here with Vanessa Perez-Perez, who graduated from BYU-Idaho in spring of 2023, and she joined the church when she was 18. So, Vanessa, can you tell me what introduced you to the church and what made you want to join the church?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually worked at Pizza Pie Cafe in Mesa, Arizona, and it was my first job. I just turned 16. I was looking for a place to work, and the owner of this store was a member of the church, and so he hired a lot of people from his ward. So I was working a lot of hours during that time, so I became really close friends with a lot of the students and the people there, and I didn't know that a lot of them were members of this church. So I kind of started hanging out with them. I became really close friends with one of the workers, and it was really funny because throughout my time there, 2 years that I worked there, I got like 3 books of Mormons, and just everybody wanted me to essentially start learning about the church. And I was like, okay, no, I'm good, but I would still take the books. I just wouldn't read them. I just kind of I just put them in my room and just not touch them. But I was going through a really hard time my senior year of high school, and I was still at this place, and a lot of my friends seemed like we were doing the same things. So we were going to school, we had jobs, we had friends. So in my mind, it just didn't make sense I just felt like something was missing in my life, and it just didn't make sense as to why it was just happening to me, but not to all of my other friends, because in my eyes, we were all going through the same things. And so I had one friend specifically that I worked with, and she was like this like ray of sunshine, and she just seemed happy. And I was like, I want to know why her life is the way that it is and why my life is the way that it is. So I kind of just started thinking, and I was like, we go to school, we like have like friends. So I just, kind of just started doing my own individual research with it. And then I was like, could it be that it's because she's like a member of this church, or that she's going to church? Because I wasn't really active. I grew up Catholic, but I wasn't really active in the Catholic church, but I wasn't active in any church, honestly. So I was like, could it just be that it's church what is missing? And so I had a really good friend that worked there, and after we stopped working, like both of us stopped working there, I started going to Mutual first, like backtracking. I started going to Mutual. I only went like 3 times. It was fun, but I was like, I don't really know if I would want to actually go to church. And so after I stopped working there with one of my friends from this place, I texted him one day, and I was like, hey, like we should do something. We should hang out. And it was really funny because he was like, I only have time to hang out Sunday from 8 to 10, like in the morning. And I was like, in the morning? I was like, that's super specific. That's so weird. He was like, yeah, honestly, I only have time to hang out during church. And even then, it's not much of a hangout, but you should come down and just like come to church with me if you're not doing anything. And I was like, well, I'm not interested in going, but yeah, I want to see you, so I guess I'll go. Where he lived was like 30 minutes from where I lived, so I had to wake up super early and just go. So I went the first time, and I really enjoyed it. I just like being able to do something on Sunday. So I was like, I'll probably come back next Sunday just to have something going on, that's not work or school related. So then I think I skipped a Sunday, but then I went back, and then I just really like started liking it. But I was like, well, I'm not going to join this church. Like, it was like, I don't know, my 3rd time. But I could really feel the spirit. But at the time, I just didn't understand that it was a spirit. But I was like, wow, like this is powerful. Testimonies that shared, like the talks, like it was so powerful. And so then I want to say towards the end of February or at the beginning of March, he was like, oh, my parents like would want you to come over for dinner. And I was like, awesome. And so he was like, Thursday at 7, please come over. Yeah, so Thursday at 7, please come over. They want to like get to know you better. And I was like, awesome. And so then I got there, and we were like waiting. Like, to my assumption, it was just me, and that's it. And so they weren't serving the food or anything, and I was like, what are we waiting for?
Can I guess?
Yeah.
The missionaries?
Yes. And so I was like, oh, the missionaries are coming. And my friend was like, oh, I didn't tell you. And I was like, no, you didn't, because if you had, I probably wouldn't have came. But I was at that point, they lived like 30 minutes, so I was like, I'm already here. I might as well just stay. So then the missionaries, the elders came, they shared the message, like the first vision. And then they asked me if I would want to get baptized. And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, no. I was like, thank you. I appreciate the lesson, but I'm not ready. Like, I just like going to church because I like it. So they were like, okay, yeah, no pressure. So I had dinner. Then that was on a Thursday. Then that Sunday, I went back to church. And so as I was leaving church, I just got this impression that I needed to go back and talk to my friend's dad because he was the second counselor of the ward. And I was like, no, like, it's fine. Like, the impression was that I needed to tell him that I wanted to take the missionary lessons with the sisters. But I was like, no, I'm going to go home. So I was like walking to my car, and then I was like, no, you have to go back right now. Because I was like, I'll just go back. I'll just tell him next Sunday. And I was like, no, go back right now. So I was like, okay. I was already like mailing to my car, so I like walked back into a church building, and I find him, and I just tell him like, hey, I would really like to take the missionary lessons, but with the sisters. And he was like, oh yeah. He was so surprised because on Thursday I'd be like, no, I'm not interested, and then Sunday I was like, okay, like, I'm ready. So it was like 2 days that kind of changed my mind. So he was like, yeah, like, I'm pretty sure we can arrange something to take them, like, for you to take them with the sisters, because I think the elders were designated to that area. So he, like, talked to sisters, and they started teaching me about the church. And I think it was after my first or second lesson with them. It was, like, 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was almost asleep, and I had this dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. I don't know. I'm just going to describe it as a dream. And I just saw basically like a hand, just like white, and a hand reaching down towards me. And that's like literally all I saw. And then I opened my eyes, and I was like, I need to get baptized like tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And so then I texted the sister missionaries at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I'm like, and I sent them this whole like long paragraph, like, I know the church is true. This is what has happened. Like, this is how my life has changed. And I want to get baptized as soon as I can. And they responded like at 6 in the morning, and they were just so surprised, but they were so happy about it. So I ended up getting baptized on April 27th of 2019. And that's basically my story of how I found the church and how I got baptized.
Wow. That is a really cool story. And your parents, how did they react, I guess, to all of this? Yeah, so my parents, I never got baptized in the Catholic Church. And one of the things that they always used to say to like me, and well, they still say it to my siblings, because I have younger siblings, is that they don't baptize us because they want us to make that decision on our own. But then when I brought up the idea of joining the LDS church, my mom was straight up like, no, you're not doing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you've been telling me like this, like all this time, but then when I tell you that I actually... They're like, it's your choice as long as you choose what we choose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we don't really, like, they know that I come, like, that I attended BYU-Idaho. They know that I am part of the church, but we don't really talk about it. It's just something that, I mean, when I go home, because they're Catholic, I would say, but they're Catholic by tradition. Is the best way to say it. Yeah. It's not like they attend church every Sunday, and a lot of that has to do with because they work on Sundays. But we don't talk about religion.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So they kind of have like made peace with it and just kind of leave it.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So tell me about your decision to come to BYU-Idaho.
Yes. So I didn't know the BYU schools were a thing. It wasn't like they weren't my first choice at all. I was in between ASU or NAU. So like just Arizona. Like I wanted to stay in Arizona. And towards the end of my junior year, I started hearing about this private Catholic university. And it just sounded appealing just because I applied for scholarship. Like I could apply for a lot of scholarships and it would be fairly cheap for me to attend. And it was like 15 minutes away from home. So it just seemed like a really good, if I didn't want to attend ASU, it seemed like a good option. And so I would say that was my number one choice to go there, if not ASU. And then even before I had made up my mind about joining the church, and I was talking to a friend just because we're ending towards the end of my senior year. So I was like, I need to pick what university I'm going to. Like I hadn't made a decision. I was like, I need to pick. And then she was like, have you given a thought to the BYU schools? And at this point, I had learned about the church. I was like in a process, but I don't remember when exactly she brought it up. And I was like, oh, like, no. And she goes, they're like super cheap. Like you can apply for like grants or scholarships. And she's like, you probably wouldn't have to pay out like money out of pocket. Like just look into it. And so I did. And I looked into BYU like Provo, and I was like, oh, like Hawaii probably would have been a dream, but I was like too far away. Like it's kind of hard to get in. I was like, no. And then I was like, BYU-Idaho. Never been to Idaho. Wouldn't even know where to tell you to, like, if you asked me on a map, like where it was. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. And so she was planning on attending BYU-Idaho. And so she was like, I'm going to go tour the school. And if you want to come with me, like over the summer, you can come. And I was like, awesome. So before that, it was weird because she told me to do my research about the BYU schools. So I started doing research, and Idaho stood out. For whatever reason, it just kind of stood out. So I was like, oh, like it would be like I would move away from home, but I kind of wanted to kind of experience college without like having my parents like 5 minutes away to kind of to kind of be on my own. So I was like, that could be fun to like go to. And so then I was at the point with the Catholic university, they were going to tell me if I got a full ride or if I didn't. And so I remember I prayed and I was like, Heavenly Father, if you want me to go to BYU-Idaho, don't give me the scholarship to the private Catholic school. But if you want me to go to the private Catholic school, give me the scholarship and I will do whatever, like whatever the deal I made, I would do whatever I agreed to. And so then I want to say maybe a week after that, I got an email that I had gotten the scholarship for the private Catholic school. And I should have been happy because I wasn't going to pay anything.
Full ride. Yeah,
it's a full ride. Like I could live at home. Like it was awesome. But I felt so sad. And I was like, why am I feeling so sad? And then at that point, they only gave me, I want to say, 2 days to decide if I wanted to take that.
Wow.
If I was going to accept that scholarship, because if not, it was going to be given to someone else. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to decide. And then I remember I just decided and I was like, I am going to decline it. And I just didn't feel right. So I declined the scholarship. And in the little notes section, I just said, I just don't feel like this is the school for me. And I hope that my scholarship goes to someone that actually wants to go to this university. Mm-hmm. And so that's all I wrote on the note. And then I declined it. But then at that point, I didn't know if I was actually going to attend BYU-Idaho because I had never even toured the school or anything. So then my friend, she was touring the school in the summer or in July, and she was like, you should come and just kind of see if you would like it. So then I came for a week, I want to say, with her, and she had like some friends here that she was hanging out with. So I just spent a week here. It was really fun. Like it kind of rained the whole week, but the group that she had like introduced me to, they were doing something every day. I think they just wanted to show that college was fun, but they were doing so much. And I was like, this is so fun. And I loved it. And it was so pretty. And I was just like, yeah, like this is the school that I want to come to. So then I just like filled out the application, or whatever we had to do to like get in. And then I got in like super easily.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So tell me, what was that first semester like?
Yeah, so my first semester actually was January of 2020. So it was a lot of change. Like coming from, it was in the winter. I'm from Arizona, so the weather, I like the cold. I am a fan of the cold, but the snow was just not a fan of the snow, especially driving. My parents let me like bring a car, and I felt like I was so scared to drive. So
I bet. I mean, coming from Arizona, it's like, yeah, like you need to know how to drive in the snow if you're going to be here.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't drive my car because I was like, I am going to die on these roads. And I had roommates, and my roommates my first semester were actually like pretty good. They were all older, so they kind of had been here like for like a while, and they were all super cool. I think the thing that I struggled with the most, and I didn't think I would struggle with, is the fact that I miss my family so much. It was like I was talking to my mom like every day, and when I was home, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you, but I'm not gonna miss you that much, right?" And it was just like, oh my gosh! And every day I tell my roommates, "I miss my mom. Like I miss my mom. Like that's literally the only thing they hear me say." And so I was like, I want to go home. Like this is kind of like not what I. It wasn't that it was like bad or that anybody was bad. It was just that I just wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I would. And I think it had to do also a lot with the fact that I came in the winter for my first semester.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of hard to meet people. And I was only taking, I want to say 3 or 4 classes. And one of them was online. So it wasn't like fully like, didn't have really much of a social life.
Right. And then, I mean, COVID happened.
Yeah. And so COVID happened. And with that, it's really funny because it happened. And as soon as they were like, yeah, like you can go home, I was like, this, like, it sounds so bad. But I was like, COVID was sent kind of for me because.
You're like, thank you.
Yeah. I was like, I know it's bad. And like, it was an awful thing that happened. But I was like, I'm just glad that I can go home. And then I was like, and honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to want to come back, like, at all.
Yeah. So then what made you decide to come back?
So once I was home, I want to say, like, I was home until the end of 2020. And I love my family. But being on my own for, like, even the 2.5 months or 3 months, I was like, I kind of want to be on my own. More than I want to be living with my parents and my siblings. So I was like, I'm gonna give it another shot and just see how it goes the second time around. So I started my second semester because I didn't take any classes during COVID besides the ones that I took my first semester. Started my second semester of January 2021, and so again winter. So
wow.
Yeah.
How did your experience at BYU-Idaho improve then after that?
Yeah, so actually there's been a lot of times where I was like, I just want to go home. Like, and then I'd go home for like vacation or something, like I need to go back. So it's very much, if I'm home, I want to be in school. If I'm at school, I want to be home. And so the second semester, I honestly was not sure that I wanted to like even stay after I'd given it a shot. I think it was probably my first month, and I had issues with one of my roommates, and it was a very big issue, and we still had to live together because she didn't want to move out and I didn't want to move out. So I was like, this is like, it was the start of the semester. I was like, this is already starting off bad. Like what's gonna happen? And I was like, I don't think I made the right decision. And so then I hadn't made, besides one of my roommate and my friend that I had lived with my first semester, I hadn't made any friends outside of the people that I lived with. And in classes, I'm kind of a shy person, so it's kind of hard to make like connections. And so I just wasn't enjoying just hanging out with the same 2 people and just not having more friends. Like it just, I don't know, the way it's hard. And so I remembered I just prayed and I said, Heavenly Father, if you really want me to stay in school, please send me like a new friend. Please just send me someone that is gonna make me enjoy school more. And I was like, I just need someone to just a new face. And so probably the day after, it was crazy. the day after, my ministering brothers came over to just kind of get to know us, and we had a game night, and I met one of like my closest friends. And I remember he reminded me a lot of a friend back home. So I went up to him after like we had played games, and I was like, "Hi," I was like, "I'm Vanessa." And I was like, "This is kind of weird, but you remind me of one of my friends back home." And he was like, "Oh, really?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Do you want to be friends?" And usually I never ask that. Like, it kind of happens when you get friends. Mm-hmm. So he was like, "Yeah, I would love to be friends." And I was like, "Awesome." I was like, "We should do something like besides like obviously mm-hmm. this." And he was like, "No, yeah." And so him and his like room roommate started hanging out with me and my room roommate. Like, we just hang out and like watch movies. They were super inviting, and like to this day, like we're super close friends. And so he was one of the reasons why I stayed, because if he had been like, "Yeah, sure, let's hang out," and then never texted or never, like want to hang out, like probably would have been like, "This sucks." Mm-hmm. But no, he was really nice. And I like to refer to him as a little angel, because if like literally like I prayed and then the next day I met him and I was like, yeah, like you are the person I prayed for. Mm-hmm. Just like a really good friend.
Yeah, it's the coolest thing when you see those answers to prayer that just come so quickly. Yeah. And it's so important that we have those people, you know, like someone that we can, just having a friend, you know, it's so important, especially with so many people here who are away from home and often for the first time. You know, I think it's important that we reach out to each other and make those connections.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Were there any teachers as well who have left an impression on you during your time here?
Yeah, so I would say I had two big ones. Brother Samson, I'm not sure if he still works here. I think he does. He was like the public relations something when I was a student. But his class, I was trying to decide what emphasis of communications I wanted to do. And I did my research, and public relations just kind of stood out to me, but I still wasn't sure if I wanted to pursue that. So it was the first public relations class that I had to take for that major, and I was like, I'm going to take it and see how it goes and if I like it. So I wanted to be done with all my classes before 2 or 3. I just didn't want to have class after that. I think it's pretty reasonable with college students. And so his class, if I remember correctly, his class was from 3 to 6 and only once a week, because he had other stuff going on, so he couldn't do it twice a week. So it was just once a week from 3 to 6. So it was late. So I was like,
3 hours.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know if I want to take it this semester, because if I waited until the next semester, then I had more options to do it and with other teachers. And so I was like, oh, fine. Like, I'll take it. Like, you know. So I took a Brother Samson, and it was one of my favorite classes ever. He's such a good man, but he also just knows so much about public relations. And it was such a small class, because I think it was during spring. So it was only 6 students plus him, so it was only 7. So I got along really well with the other like 5 classmates. It was, I don't know, we were like such a tight little groove of just like that whole semester. And he would like talk about the gospel in such a good way, and about public relations. And something when it comes to like me knowing if I have a favorite teacher is if they can teach me stuff that I can apply to like whatever I'm learning for like class, but also things that I can apply to like my actual life, you know? So life lessons as long as well like school lessons. And he was one of those teachers that just really did like both of those things. And yeah, and he's just such a good man too. I would say is like my favorite teacher, like my first like favorite teacher in college. I was like, I love this man so much. And every time I would see him on campus, I'd be like, I miss you so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then after, I think the semester following that, if not the following semester, I had class with Brother Rockwood. And he is just, I don't know how to describe him. He's just always so happy to see his students. When I had him as a teacher, he was always like asking me like how my day is going, like how my weekend was. Like I could just tell that he cared about his students. And I also learned a lot of like good things about PR in his class. But I would say that the lessons that he taught me as just how to be a better person or how to be a better disciple of Christ or stuff that I wouldn't have learned with other teachers.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's the thing is I think sometimes it can be easy to complain because, the winters are so long, it gets so cold, all of those things. But it is really cool having teachers who can weave gospel principles into seemingly secular topics. So I think that's something that's really valuable about BYU-Idaho.
Oh, for sure. Like I wouldn't have this experience at any at a Catholic private university, like just the things. It also made me feel, and not just with them too, but with any teacher that I had, they just made me feel closer to Christ because he would always apply stuff that was that I could use,
Yeah, I love that. I was actually going to ask you how coming to school here has helped you draw closer to Christ.
Yeah, I think just the relationships that at the end of the day, I feel like it's, if you come to BYU-Idaho, that doesn't mean that you're going to go to church every Sunday or that you're going to read your scriptures every day. But I feel like if you're coming here, that it's a church school. So you kind of have been putting an effort into what you're doing as you're building your testimony. And I think having a good influence of people around me was probably the best thing, in my opinion, for me to grow closer to Christ. I had great roommates that even if I was I don't know if I want to go to church today, I'm just not feeling it. They'd be like, no, just come. Even if it's for just the first hour. You don't have to stay for the second, but just come for at least the first. And that didn't happen often, but when I did, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of glad that I have you, specifically you, because they wouldn't be like, okay, yeah, I'm not going. They'd be like, no, just just do it. And I had great roommates. I also met, I think the teachers is what makes the difference here. Truly, at least for my major, I just felt like a lot of the teachers were really good at teaching what they were, the course that they were teaching, but also just being really good Christ-like examples. Yeah. So I think for me, the biggest thing was definitely the influence of people. Or if I saw one of my friends reading their scriptures, I'd be like, oh, I should probably read mine too. Because you're surrounded with people that want to grow closer to Christ. So it just kind of makes you want to grow closer to Christ.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. It's been really great hearing your story and your experience here. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the BYU-Idaho Disciple Journeys podcast, a production of BYU-Idaho Radio. A special thanks to our guest, Vanessa Perez-Perez. Our theme music is by Sophia Pack, and I'm Isabella Salazar. You can listen to more episodes on your favorite podcast app or find us online at byui.edu/radio.